Hello, sixth grade science students. This is Mrs. Kuntz, and I am going to help you with the solar system Gizmo. Okay, so what you're going to need today is a pencil, and you're going to need your notebook, and we are on page 31 in your science notebook. Now, the nice thing about a screencastify is as I'm going through this, you can pause when you need to write things down in your notebook, and then just keep going with the video when you've got your information on there. So I'm not going to stop for you because you can just pause the video. Okay, so this Gizmo, as you can see, and I will go and enlarge it, this one is going to teach us about the solar system, and we're going to learn about the different objects in our solar system today. All right, we're going to be focusing mainly on sort of comparing the inner planets with the outer gas planets, the inner rocky planets and the outer gas planets. And we're going to be looking at kind of the size of them and how that affects their atmosphere, which is the layer of gas around a planet. Your last question today on page 33 is going to be to explain what planet do you think would be easiest for humans to colonize someday, and explain. So as we go through this, you want to be thinking, not the Earth, because that's where we already live, but as we're gathering information about the different planets, in the back of your head, be thinking about which of these planets do you think is most likely for humans to colonize in the future, and then you would use some information from the Gizmo to support your claim. Okay, so we are on page 31, and there's some vocabulary there, and those words should be looking kind of familiar to you. Atmosphere, ellipse, which is kind of like a flattened circle, and that's the path that the planets go around the sun. Gas giant, gravity, inner planet, orbit, outer planet, planet, rocky planet, solar system, and year. Okay, so the first thing we always do with the Gizmo is we answer some prior knowledge questions before you do the Gizmo. So this is just what do you think right now. Again, just pause the video when you need to. So number one, name all of the planets that you can think of right now before you do the Gizmo. Number two, what object is at the center of the solar system? What force, question three, what force keeps the planets from flying out of the solar system? So why do these planets just continually go around that center object of our solar system? Okay, so if you're done with the prior knowledge questions, let's move on to the Gizmo warm-up. On the solar system Gizmo, we're going to check that the orbit tab is selected. Cool. At first, you can only see the 4 inner planets. One thing you need to realize, you guys, is right here, it tells you something about the scale, and scale is one of our terms we're working on. The solar system is so big, there's so much space between these planets that it's really hard to show all the planets at once and also have the correct size. So for this model right here that we're looking at, focusing on the orbits, we have the distances is what they are modeling and not the size of the planets. Okay, and we'll see when we move to size, it's going to be flipped. It'll be the opposite. Okay, it says move the cursor over each planet to learn its name. What are the 4 inner planets? So right now we're zoomed into the 4 inner planets. By the way, if you didn't know, this is the sun, not a planet, it's a star, and that's the center of our solar system. So we have Mercury, Venus, our home, Earth, and Mars. Those are the 4 inner planets. So these inner planets are called rocky planets because their surfaces are rocky, which makes you wonder about the outer ones. Okay, so we're going to click on the shrink button, upper right. It's actually on the, trying to move this thing. It's behind here, so I'm going to X out of that for a second. It's down here, so we're going to click on that 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and we are just zooming out. So now we can see the rest of the planets in our solar system. Okay, and now it says, hey, what are the names of the 4 outer planets? So we've got Neptune, we've got Uranus, we've got Saturn, and we've got Jupiter. Okay, and those are the 4 outer planets. And it says these planets are called gas giants because they are essentially huge balls of gas. Okay, and that's going to come up in a minute here because we're going to talk about atmosphere. They're basically all atmosphere or almost all atmosphere. Okay, and then if we zoom back in again, we can see again the 4 inner planets. Okay, so number 3 says before 2006, while Pluto was still considered a planet, people used to say this to remember the 9 planet names. So when I was growing up, this is how we would memorize the names of the planets and in the right order. And this is called a mnemonic device. It helps you memorize things. My very excellent mother just sent us 9 pizzas. So when you look at that, every single letter, first letter of those words is a letter that the planets start with in order from the sun. And you have to remember that there's 2 M's for Mercury and Mars, but Mercury is closest to the sun. So my very excellent mother just served us 9 pizzas, was Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and then it used to be Pluto. So on the bottom of page 31, you're going to come up with a new sentence to help remember the 8 planet names in order. Okay, so come up with your own mnemonic device. So a sentence where every first letter of each word reminds you of the order of the planets without Pluto in it. Okay, so stop the video, do that, and then when you're ready, we're back. So we're going to skip page 32, you guys, and the reason we're skipping page 32 for this gizmo is it's really similar to what we did with age and space. Okay, so ignore page 32. In fact, what I did is I just put a big X through that. I'm going to see if I can get my camera again. I'm not sure where it went. That's okay. You don't need to see me. Okay, so we are on page 33. Okay, now page 33, we're going to be comparing planets. All right, activity B says get the gizmo ready by selecting the size tab. So remember under orbits, the planet sizes are not to scale. Now it's saying the distances are not to scale. Okay, so now they're really showing you how the planets compare in size. All right, so these 2 planets right here are about the same size. Okay, you can kind of see that these inner ones are much smaller. We got the big 2 huge ones here, and then these guys are medium sized. Okay, now I'm going to go back to orbit for a second, just so you know, you guys, you can go through and learn all sorts of different things about the planets over here. And then we're back at size, and this one you can click on a planet to select it. Okay, and we are at the sun. I'm not going to read all of those. You guys could go through and click on each planet and read about it. Well, actually, we're going to read through a lot of these. Never mind. Okay, it says observe. Look closely at the diagram of planets. Based on the diagram, and remember the sizes are to scale now, list the planets from smallest to largest. Okay, so we start way over here. The very smallest is Mercury. And then Mars, Venus, and Earth. You can see Venus and Earth are pretty similar, but Earth is a little bit bigger. All right, we're going to skip Saturn and Jupiter, and we're going to come out here. And if it's my eyes are seeing things correctly, the next one is the outermost planet, Neptune. So after Earth is Neptune. And then Uranus is just a little bit bigger than Neptune. And then we got Saturn. And we've got the biggest planet at all is Jupiter. Okay. Question 2 is asking us to compare. How do the 4 rocky planets compare to the 4 gas giants in size? So they're asking us, well, what can you tell me about these 4 planets, the rocky ones, compared to the size of the 4 outer ones? And I think we can all agree that the rocky planets are much smaller than the gas planets. Okay, in your comparison, make sure you talk about the rocky planets being much smaller than the gas planets. All right, question 3. Most planets are surrounded by layers of gas called an atmosphere. Okay, so gas is different than solid. So when we walk around on the Earth, we are walking around on a solid object, but Earth is surrounded by a layer of gas, which we call the atmosphere. Okay, and it says here that most planets have an atmosphere. And when they say most, it makes me think, well, there must be one that doesn't, or at least one. So question A says of the rocky planet, it says click on each planet and read about it. Focus on information about each planet's atmosphere. Okay, and I'm going to look at the questions we're going to answer. Of the rocky planets, which have well-developed atmospheres? So out of these ones, which planets have a really well or established atmosphere? and which has only a thin atmosphere, and which has no atmosphere at all. Which planets are mostly made of atmosphere? Okay, so let's look at these inner ones here. It says Mercury is about as wide as the United States mainland. Mercury has no atmosphere, so some parts of its face have many craters from meteoroids. Other parts of the surface were probably smoothed by volcanic activity. The sun has changed Mercury's rotation so that its day lasts exactly 2 years. All right, so Mercury has no atmosphere. So question number C on 33, which planet has no atmosphere at all, is Mercury. Venus is often called Earth's sister planet because it is nearly the same size as Earth and is made of similar substances. Thick clouds of carbon dioxide cover Venus, making it brighter than any star at night. Heat trapped by these clouds make the surface hot enough to melt lead. Probably not a great place to colonize. Despite this, some scientists think humans could someday, some scientists think humans could someday colonize Venus's upper atmosphere. I guess we would live out in the atmosphere, which is weird, where conditions are more moderate. Okay, so Venus has thick clouds of carbon dioxide. Okay, so that sounds like Venus is, for question A, is one of the rocky planets with a well-developed atmosphere. And so is Earth. Earth is amazingly well suited for life. Its atmosphere warms the surface at night and burns up meteors. Earth's magnetic field shields us from harmful radiation. Earth is often called the water planet due to the volume of water on its surface. The Earth's moon is so large that some scientists consider the Earth and moon together as a double planet. So along with Venus, on question A, both Venus and Earth have well-developed atmosphere. Sometimes Earth is called the Goldilocks planet because it's just right for human life. Not too close to the sun and not too far away from the sun. All right, let's cruise out here to Mars. Mars is about half as wide as Earth, so its gravity is weak and holds only a thin atmosphere. So question B, which has only a thin atmosphere, is Mars. For unknown reasons, the northern half of Mars's rocky surface is smooth, while the southern half is heavily cratered. Mars has the highest mountain in the solar system, Olympus Mons. It is 22 kilometers or 14 miles high and 480 kilometers wide. Okay, so then it says which planets are mostly made of atmosphere. So let's go look at these outer planets. Jupiter is 11 times as wide as Earth and twice as massive as all the other planets combined. It's huge. Jupiter is a gas giant, a huge ball of mostly hydrogen and helium. There's probably a rocky core very deep inside. In 1979, scientists were surprised to find that Jupiter actually has rings like Saturn, but they are too dark to be seen from Earth. So Jupiter is mostly atmosphere. Saturn is a huge ball of hydrogen and helium gas, nearly 10 times as wide as Earth. Saturn's rings have dazzled astronomers for centuries. Recently, very small spokes were found in the rings. Scientists do not fully understand how these or the rings themselves were formed. Saturn is so light compared to its size that it would float on water. All right, so again, it's a giant gas planet, so mostly atmosphere. Uranus is approximately 4 times as wide as Earth. Unlike Jupiter and Saturn, Uranus has a large amount of solid rock and ice under its thick atmosphere. Large amounts of methane gas in its upper atmosphere make it blue. Uranus is extremely tilted and no one knows why. It practically rotates on its side. Scientists even argue over which is the North Pole. And then lastly, beautiful Neptune. Neptune is very similar to Uranus in size, atmosphere, and composition. Scientists do not know why Neptune is so much more vividly blue than Uranus. Neptune has the fastest winds in the solar system, achieving speeds of over 1,100 kilometers per hour. It is unknown how such fierce winds are generated. Probably not a great place to colonize, right? Okay, so D, which planets are mostly made of atmosphere? Well, they're the gas planets, you guys. They're called gas because atmosphere is gas, so they're mostly atmosphere. All right, 4, analyze how is the size of a planet related to the thickness of its atmosphere, and explain. Well, the gas planets, you guys, are much bigger and they have thicker atmospheres, where the rocky planets are much smaller and have either thin or no atmosphere at all. So a good answer to that could be the larger the planet, the thicker the atmosphere. And then as evidence for that claim, you could say Mercury, the smallest planet, has no atmosphere and Jupiter, the largest, is mostly atmosphere. So notice how I'm making a claim and then I'm supporting it with some evidence. The larger the planet, the thicker the atmosphere. Mercury, the smallest planet, has no atmosphere, and Jupiter, the largest planet, is mostly atmosphere. Okay, and then like I told you guys, question 5 here on page 33, extend your thinking. Which planet do you think would be easiest for humans to colonize someday? And explain. Great, thanks you guys.